Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my stream. It just so happens to be July 28, 2015, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 248, where we learn to be better artists. Today is Tutorial Tuesday, and I am your host, Kienan Lafferty. Did I already say that? I always forget if I say my name, but it doesn't matter because today we are going to be jumping back into our good old pool party Lulu, and the stream is just going to be a tad bit laggy on Twitch today. But fear not, because those days are going to be gone with the wind. They are going to be crumbling into dust and floating away into a magical land where we never have to see them again, because I'm going to be getting my own new house, crazy new house. And I'm going to be basically I'm going to find out who has the best internets, and I'm going to pay them to get the best internet possible, so that way lag will be a thing of the past. But people on YouTube, it doesn't really matter because everything's streaming just fine. But yes, in fact, we are going to be working on or finishing Pool Party Lulu. But before we get into that, we need to take a stroll down the lovely lane because you guys are so awesome submitting things onto the Facebook. If you want to go check out these awesome things for yourself, the link is in the description on YouTube, or you can just type in that tiny URL backed by the friendly Facebook Blue. And once again, thank you to everyone submitting stuff. Come like the show, get featured on the show, and get cookies. I think that's what I usually say. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the picture. So, the first thing we're going to be looking at, in fact, is this good old Pool Party Lulu. And I think where we left off was somewhere right around here. This is where we were last week. I did a little bit of painting over on the face, but in general, this is basically where we were. And today we're going to be discussing the differences between this and this, the paint overs, all the paint overs. And I do have, you might be asking, how do you get to this point, Keenan? How do you get to this point? And fear not, because I have an awesome time lapse that will actually not educate you at all on the process, but it looks cool and it's entertaining, so we're going to go ahead and do it anyway. And I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm doing. Okay, so, and for those of you who don't know, this is like part 5, I think, of the series. If you want to go back and see how I even came up with the design, did the layouts, the colors, and you can see all the earlier stuff, just go check that out on the YouTube. You just look at the old parts of this thing. But we are going into the overpainting. So the things that I have taught you up to this point, just refreshing your memory, is we've laid out some lines. We laid down some lines, and then we colored those lines. Or rather, we did lines first. We're doing what we call the animation cell technique. Lines in front, and then we have placed colors behind those lines, okay? So, and now what we're doing is we have colored the lines. And the reason why I go about doing this is because it begins to soften lines. It begins to soften them from their black state, their comic book looking state, and it begins to make them softer. So in general, my rule is whatever line is surrounding, like basically whatever color is next to the line, for instance, hey, Lulu's hair, it's purple. So if you look closely at those lines that are in there, I've painted them a very, very dark purple or very dark purple blue because I also like to hue shift. Hue shift is another very important thing. And then on the skin, we also talked about, it's also this purple, but it has a lot more red in it. And it's a lot more saturated. And this introduces life into our once dead lines, and it looks awesome. So make sure you go ahead and you do that as well. And now that we have gone through the entire piece and softened our lines, we are now prepared. The piece is now prepared for us to begin doing our overpainting. Our overpainting, which is basically, if you look here, hey, look at that layer. It's called layer 6. But more important than that, it's above everything. It is above and beyond every other layer on the piece. And that means that basically we are working every single thing that you lay down. That is the rule, right? You're laying down the law. It's time to lay the smack down on your piece. I'm going to finish it off. And basically your word is law. And I love this part because basically a lot of the work has been done for you if you are doing this. That's why I teach you guys this technique, because a lot of your work has already been done for you because you've got colors behind the lines. You've got the actual lines, and then you've got the lines that are colored. And so basically all I'm doing is I'm going through here and I'm smoothing things out, but I'm always making sure that I'm retaining the original likeness of the sketch, right? I always go back, like I keep it on layer. Okay, so here, really quickly, we're gonna jump over to the actual PSD. So if you notice, this is right over here. This is our group 2. Let me go ahead and zoom that out real quick. Okay, so here's group 2. This is all of our paint overs. So if I take away the paint overs, notice how it doesn't really change the drawing that much. Like the actual shapes don't change. The lighting and stuff will change just because we're like rendering materials and all that stuff. But overall, The actual feeling of the piece is still intact. I've still preserved it, even though I've gone through and I painted over everything. And this is a very, very important point that I want you guys to understand. As you go through and paint stuff, you don't need to worry so much about redoing everything. Like I didn't repaint this nose. I didn't repaint the eyes. Rather, what I did is just kind of clean things up a little bit, kind of added in a little bit more color, a little bit more brightness, highlights in the hair, and rendering and stuff like that. But overall, the same shadows, the same lines are still there, but they're just kind of refined. And we'll go into a little bit more of that. And as a bonus, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about this water effect, because I'm sure you guys want to know, how do I make magical looking water that still kind of looks cartoony, but still arguably realistic looking? And we'll go ahead and go into that at the very end. But first, let's go ahead and continue with this, because we got about, I don't know, these time lapses will probably take a couple minutes. But in the meantime, yeah, I'll just kind of talk to you guys about my general rule. And that is, if you look very closely, the way that I make my lines disappear, and I want you to watch this, basically as I go through this entire piece, anywhere that you see like a line, for example, at the bottom of this tube, what I end up doing is I will either take that line and I will just kind of like blend it right into the rest of the like whatever shape it is. Like for example, let's go ahead and head back to the PSD really quickly. So look at this. Check this out. So I want this face to look like it doesn't have a line on it necessarily. There's still a little line that's happening right there. But rather than having this big, thick line be there, what I decided to do was I blended that line. I said, okay, because lines, as we know, are just 2 points of contrast that come together, a light and a dark. Okay, so in order for that to happen, I will say, okay, well, I have a light shape right here. I have a light shape for her skin. And then I'm going to have this side be the dark shape. And I'm going to make this sort of floaty thing be like in shadow. So what I did was I actually still have that line there, but see how I like blended it very subtly into the floaty? See that? So that's basically how I go about doing everything with making my lines disappear. See how even on, like there's still a little bit of a line on this, on the bottom of the floaty, but see how I also just gradate that up into the main shape. I gradate that into the main shape. Here, let me actually show this. I should show this. Okay, so here's a good example. Some of my lines I really like to keep intact just because it's more of a stylistic choice and I think it looks cool. But let's say that we had a really, really harsh line right here. Really, really harsh line on the edge of her suit. And I wanted to blend that. Well, here's how I'd go about doing that. Let's say it looked like this. Let's say the edge of her suit looked like this. Okay, so see how there's a very clear distinction between the light and the dark? Well, what I will do is I'll say, okay, well, I know that the light is coming from the front and the top. So I know that as the shape curves away from me, naturally there's going to be shadow there. So here's what I do. I'll actually take that and I'll blend it. So see how I'm blending the line into the edge here? Blending that line right into the edge. So now you have, let's go ahead and show what's happening. So you have a gradient that's basically happening from right here and it's going to the line. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make your lines disappear. You just gradate them. You just blend them into the actual form. And always keep in mind those points of contrast. You know, a good example of this was actually with the floaty. So originally, the bottom of this floaty was more like this color, okay? And here's where you guys will run into some problems inevitably, okay? So originally the floaty was kind of like this color. And notice how there's not that big of a difference between this value and this value. See how they're kind of blending together? I wanted a higher amount of contrast there. So here's where you need to ask yourself a question. You need to say, okay, well, there's two ways that I can solve this. One is I can say, okay, the floaty is above this yellow part right here. So there's going to be a shadow here. There's going to be a shadow here. And you can make this part darker, okay? So that is one idea or one solution, okay? Or you can make the floaty darker. Notice how, look at this, check this out. So this actually does work. If I wanted to just kind of blend it a little bit better, it technically would work. Okay, so like that. There's one solution, but the solution that I decided to go with was I like the lightness of the yellow here. So instead, I decided to make the floaty darker. But see how my main point of, like my main goal is to create an area of contrast there. One has to be darker, one has to be lighter, just so those two forms can separate themselves. But see how just as easily I could say, okay, well, the shadow will be there and the floaty will be lighter. So, I mean, it doesn't really necessarily matter. In fact, actually, now that I look at it, I kind of like that more. But whatever, I'll just keep it that way. Actually, no, I do like that one more. Just because I think about the light going into the inner tube, and it has like more, I mean, both of them are kind of like plasticky, but whatever. Okay, just trying to make a point. Reading too much into it, that's the way you do it. Think about your areas of contrast, make one darker, make one lighter, okay? And then whatever, just it's your drawing, so you can bend the rules of physics any way that you wish. Okay, let's go ahead and get back into the good old drawing, good old time lapse. I love that. So now that you know my secret, now that you know my technique, watch how I do it on this actual piece. Watch as I do it right before your very eyes. And then we'll go ahead and just continue with that. And in a moment, I'm going to take some questions, and then we're going to move into the water. The water. But in the meantime, I think I'll just kind of let's talk about a little bit of backstory. Let's talk about why I decided I was even going to do this in the first place. And really the biggest reason is because I love yordles. Everybody knows this. I love yordles. Lulu was one of the first, actually she was the very first yordle that I worked on while I was at Riot Games. I did her splash art, for those of you who don't know, when I was in-house working for them. And I immediately I fell in love with yordles. I just love, all the yordles are awesome. And I was really excited specifically about the yordle unification process, because originally the female yordles of all of them, they were originally a different race called a megling, and that's why they look kind of like weird Smurfs, right? Pre-Tristana rework and all that stuff, and Poppy still looks this way. She looks like a Smurf. And then with Lulu, we were actually contemplating as like, okay, is this the first time where we're going to actually make like a furry yordle or a furry female yordle? Are we going to give her like furry ears, or what are we going to do? And so we came up with all these different concepts. There's some old drawings that I did of like how we would actually make the female yordles look more like the male yordles, like Timo and Kienan. And it was just really exciting to really get into that, because I really felt a lot more connected to a champion, because I felt like I was really starting to, like I was in the process of designing it, as opposed to just being a splash artist where they just hand the finished champion over to me and say, okay, here's the champion, just make it look cool. So it was a lot more fun. I felt a lot more invested, and that's why I love yordles and why I love Lulu just as much. And she's freaking cute. I just love her so much. Alrighty, so let's see, how are we doing here? All right, we got some more paint overs going on. So while this is going, I'm actually going to go ahead and take some questions. So go ahead and load them up on the catapult. Question catapults. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please cast your questions over the castle walls, and I will answer them as we continue with our good old time lapse. And then we'll go ahead and finish it off with some good old water tutorials. Let's see here. Palace Nava. Oh, and we stopped dropping frames. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Thank you, Lords of the Land. All right, what's your process of choosing the right colors and lights and shadows? It's the same for every surface, like metal, clothing, or skin. Palace Nava, great question. Okay, so the way that I like to go about choosing my colors specifically for this, and we talked a little bit about this in the older parts, which is basically, let's go ahead and go back to the Photoshop document. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this up, because this is going to be our master. So I want you to be looking at this and check this out. Okay, so I taught you guys a long time ago about exposure, right? So we have the skin, right? Lulu's skin is kind of like a pinkish purple, right? So the main thing that I'm thinking about with this piece, because it's like a very, very bright scene, I want it to look like she's running around and it's like a very heavy, bright sunlight. So the way that you make light or something look lit and it's very, very bright is you vary up the differences between, or the contrast between, the light and the shadow. So look at how big of a jump there is from up here to over here. See, it's going from like way the heck up here to down here. So there's a huge, huge contrast between these shadows, lights and shadows. Same thing on the hair. Look, we start here and then we move like all the way down here. And we're hue shifting. I've taught you guys all about this. Hue shifting makes everything look a lot cooler. So we're going kind of like from this purple, and then see how the hue shift goes down here. See, this is your little Richter scale. Oh, and we can even like move it like this. You can see how it moves right there. Look at it dancing. Isn't that awesome? So hue shifting is important. I'm always thinking about that. Most of the time I really like to think about, okay, well, if it's outside, a lot of my shadows are going to hue shift towards blue. You notice how it's going blue? And then my reflected light also is blue. It's like this teal. So I'm taking into account not only the sunlight, but then shadow, and then what color is this? How is this water going to affect this right here? How is it going to affect everything that it's reflecting up onto? So high contrast, and just keeping in mind all like your main light and reflected light. A good friend of mine said the difference between something cartoon and something realistic is just your reflected light. As soon as you start adding in things like this, as soon as you start adding things in like this at the bottom of the tube, like see there's even some at the bottom of the nose. Bottom of her nose has reflected light down here. See how that automatically makes things so much more realistic. It makes it more realistic. It makes it more believable. And it really starts to round the forms. It really starts to show you exactly the forms. And that's why it's very pleasing to you, because it feels very natural. All right, next question. That was a mouthful. Damn, we got some good questions. I mean, dang. This is a family-friendly show. We don't say naughty words on this one. You didn't hear that. You did not hear that. Okay, let's see. Toki ESP. Oh, great question. This kind of falls into what we were talking about. How do I match the colors of the character in the background? I want harmony. Okay, really that has to do with your ambient colors. I mean, for here, we're using lots of, like I said, this is just a white background, but there's a little bit of blue up here. So really you want to think about what your ambient color is and what most of your shadows are going to be going towards. And in this case, it was blue because we have blue down here. We have blue in the sky. And we have like basically a white light from the sun and blue around. So the way that you make things look in harmony is you make sure that everything just kind of, you want to keep in mind your ambient color. So if it's a sunset, all of your shadows and all your colors are going to revolve around that orangey color because of the sky, right? And then, just whatever your ambient color is, make sure your colors revolve around that. That's how you make your character look like it is in harmony with the background. And that's actually a really good question. We should do I did do an ambient occlusion tutorial a while ago, but it was kind of, it was okay. We could do it again. And I could demonstrate that for you. Maybe with the next piece. We'll see. All right. But anyway, we're getting distracted. Back to this. We need to finish this and get to that water. A couple more questions and then we're done. Carry on couch is good. Good question. So it gets kind of hard for me to follow what layer you're coloring on sometimes. Do you keep each item on a separate layer? How do you pick what goes on each layer? I feel like I end up with dozens of layers trying to keep everything straight. Yes, I feel your pain. Carry on, and I will show you how I go about doing that. Okay, let's go ahead and switch back to this. Go ahead and switch. You guys got such good questions today. Okay, so I too get lost. With all of my layers. So I'm going to show you how I go about organizing them. Okay, so eyes down here, right here. This is basically my lines layer. So check this out. We got the lines, we got the foreground, right, which is foreground, and then we have the background, which is like the tentacles. See, as I take these away, the lines disappear. But then I have these things called clipping masks, which are basically layers that are clipped back to. This is how I color my lines, and I showed you guys how to do this in one of the previous parts, okay? So you take this away and check it out. See, we're left with our original dark blue or black lines, and then I've colored them. See how that softens everything? It almost starts to make the picture feel like it's almost overpainted. It starts to make it feel more natural, and that's really cool. Okay, so we got lines. I like to group my layers, so lines are all in one layer, but then I have color. Okay, so check this out. I have a bunch of color layers, and they're all clipped back. Look at this. They're all clipped back to the original mask, which is basically, look, check this out. Marching ants, check out the marching ants. They're all around that silhouette of the character, okay? So if I take away this mask, see how everything disappears? All the colors disappear, only the lines are left. Also, this is also on two masks because I have the foreground and I have the background, okay? And the reason why I did this is just because if there's like really, really heavy, like for instance, it just makes it easier, right? For like doing like a cast shadow, like I don't have to worry about the shadow like blending into the top part of this hat. It's just easy when you have like two distinct like planes that your character is on. Sometimes I like to separate it into two different masks. So there you go. There's all your colors. There's all your lines. And then we move into the paint overs. So the way that I work with my paint overs is, so say something like this. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning. So I'll do some paint overs and I'll be like, okay, that looks good. And then when I want to do a new one, like if I want to make some changes that I know are going to be like a major change. So in this case, it was like adding stuff to like the tube and stuff like that. See, this is like changing the tube. I just kind of go about like making new layers whenever I'm about to change something major. Like here's the hair, and then here's the, like the tentacles on the inflatable thing. And then here's the staff. And the reason I just do those on different layers, and then eventually I actually will merge those. I'll merge those into one big paint over layer, which is what I did in this one right here. This is actually a bunch of the paint over layers all on one. And the reason why I do this is because it's just nice to every now and then just merge layers that you know can go together. It just makes things a lot easier. And but yeah, basically that's my philosophy, is whenever I'm going to do something that's going to make a big change to it, I will go ahead and do that. All right. Okay. We're getting way carried away. No more questions for now. We got to go into the water. Okay. We're starting to paint the water. So good. Perfect. Okay. So let me show you guys how to paint water. All right. So let's go ahead and do a quick tutorial. Bonus tutorial. So check this out. Okay. So here's how you're going to make water from now on till the day you die. Okay. Which is hopefully a long, long time from now. Let's go ahead and start with, okay, so water. Oh, what the heck is going on? Picked the wrong color. Okay, so here's how you create water. Here's what I want you to think about. So you can create like a splash like this, okay? Create a splash. Not like a splash from League of Legends, like an actual splash, okay? Now, so there's your lines, and then you can kind of sort of drop in some color, okay? Now here's the magical way that you're going to do water from now on. Okay, so you have a shape. Okay, create a shape like this. Now, basically, everything that's going to be going through your mind as you do this is this, okay? So you got your colors here, and you got your water here. Okay, so here's how water interacts with basically everything. So you're going to have two things happening. You're going to have, first let's start with the light that's going to refract from underneath it. Because basically, I want you to think about it like this. The light goes into the water, and then it sort of like collects at the bottom of it. Okay, so if you notice, there's a trend that's happening here. There's a trend that's happening in all of this water. Notice how it's darkest towards the top. Whoops. It's darkest towards the top, and then as we go down towards the bottom, it becomes lighter. So I want you to think almost like it's a reversed world. It is opposite day, right? So now wherever your light is coming from, right? So in this case, the light is coming from the top. It is going to instead gather at the bottom. It's going to gather at the bottom and then refract upwards, okay? So let's go ahead and put that into practice. Let's put that into practice, shall we? So let's go ahead and pull out our good old soft brush. So you have your light collecting at the bottom of each of these parts of the water. So say like right here, there would be some light refracting there, a little bit of light there, a little bit of light there. Okay, cool. Step one's done. So now also I want you to go in and put a little bit more shadow in the top of the water. Okay, and you can do like little things. Sometimes I'll put in like little designs. Sometimes you can have like little things that kind of go like that. Whatever. I just want you to play around, see what works good for you. But in general, you know the rule. You know the rule now. Okay, light collects at the bottom like that. But here's the part that really makes it pop out. Okay, so new layer on top of everything. And now you're going to create your speculars, because it is a very, it's like a gelatinous surface. It is a very shiny surface, the shiniest of them all. And you're going to make sure that at the points where basically at the points or just on the edges, you'll create highlights. And look at that. Ah, brilliant. And then you can go ahead and like do stuff like that and see how that immediately gives you a watery look, a nice watery look. So that's basically what I was doing right here. That's basically the exact principle that I was using while I was working with that. Okay, and then you can also go through, if you want to get rid of your lines, hey, I taught you how to do that. I'm going to show you again, just in case you forgot. So you can go in there and you can color those lines. Look at that. Boom. See? Nice, clear water. Nice, clear, clean water. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make cartoony / realistic looking water. So let's go ahead and put that in practice and show it hyperspeed. Show it at hyperspeed. So now that you know that technique, go ahead and check this out. We'll finish off this painting. Do the final outro, and then we're done, people. We're done with this one. Feels good to be done with this. We've been working on it for a couple of weeks, and I'm actually very, very satisfied with it. Very, very happy with how Lulu turned out. This will be being uploaded onto my DeviantArt, as well as for those of you who want to get the PSD, it's going to be on Patreon. So if you want to go check out all these layers for yourself, then you can go pledge on there. But I'll have instructions for that in just a moment. Don't you worry. People on YouTube, you probably don't know what you have to do, but I like to save that for the end. But anyway, so yeah, continuing with the water. I'll take one more question. Ooh, Too refined. Great question. Any advice for someone that wants to get a booth and sell artwork at a con? Yes. Great question. Too refined. Okay, so here's what you want to do. You want to actually do it. You want to realize that, hey, you actually are going to have to call some people. You're going to have to talk to a stranger. You're going to have to find out who's organizing this thing, and you're probably going to have to drop a couple $100 to get an artist alley booth, okay? Now, the second thing that would really help you out, and this is something that I wish I would have done the first time I came in, is have things to prop up your artwork. Have things that are ready to prop up your artwork. Because I had this cool idea for this. I had this TV behind me, like a big old banner, and everything that was behind me looked super awesome. But then the table was literally just flat, and then I had like 5 cards laid out on the table that I drew because I didn't really have anything to sell. I was just there kind of promoting Emma, and I just got out there because, my friend actually kind of gave me a push and was like, you should just go, which was actually very, very nice. But then he ended up being my business partner. Things didn't work out too well. And, now that ship has sailed, right? But in the beginning, right, the most important thing is realizing that if you don't think you're ready, then really I think you are, and that you should just get out there. You need to just get yourself out of your comfort zone, get in that con, and then you'll learn all these things as you go. But probably the biggest thing that I learned was just make sure that you focus on the table first. Focus on that. Don't worry so much about the banner. Banner's nice and everything. Don't worry about anything behind you. What you want to focus on is just having your artwork out and having it easy for people to look at. Also, another thing that's really handy is having a display that allows people to pick it up and touch it. Allow people to actually hold your artwork. Because if it's just this is something that I see all the time at cons, and it kind of bugs me. Just people have the display, right? They have the huge display behind them, and then people are supposed to just kind of point at something and kind of pick one. But I find it a lot more interesting when the artwork is out and you can actually pick it up and hold it. At least have some things. You don't have to have all your art able to be picked up, but some of it should be. And I'm losing my voice as we speak. Ugh. All right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to end this good old piece. Lulu is up and running. That makes me so happy. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, as well as all the bonus stuff that you got. All that good old bonus stuff. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and end today's show. But before we take off, I want to say thank you to my awesome sponsors, David Cariello and Laura Bashir. These people are awesome. They are my sponsors on Patreon. You can check out their artwork in the YouTube description below. And it's also, hey, on my DeviantArt. Check this out. Oh, wait, Oh, there we go. It's also on my DeviantArt, so go check them out. You can go click and check out their artwork. If you would like to get yourself an animated thing, as you notice, I made a cool animated thing for them. You can get a cool animated avatar and sponsored on my show, or sponsored by me by sponsoring the show on Patreon. You can do that by clicking the link down if you're watching on YouTube. People on the chat, I will put that link up in just a moment. And this PSD, hey, look at that. This PSD is going to be going up there, and I did F11 so that way the stupid toolbar went away and it's just making things harder. Yes, this PSD is going to be going up there, so you can check out all these layers. You can check out my entire process if you go on and support on the Patreon. Alrighty, people. Thank you so much for joining me live on Twitch. People on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. My name is Kienan Lafferty. I'll see you guys on Thursday for a good old thoughtful. And until then, you guys take care. See ya.